by som vás v mene závodyska Bratislava dnes privítal na dnešnom prvom seminári trénerov, ktorého sa zúčastňuje takmer 70 trénerov zo 7 krajín. Je pre mňa veľkým potešením a zároveň cťou, že môže medzi nami privítať doktora Paula Kahna, generálneho sekretára Európskej a Stredomorskej federácie dostihových autorít.
Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to be here. Seminars are a very important part of what the European and Mediterranean Horse Racing Federation does. But this is a first, because usually they are held in the countries with the biggest racing industries, in Ireland or Britain or France, for the benefit of the countries with smaller racing industries. Was that he was the first British trainer to reach 1,000 winners, the fastest after getting his license, and equally the fastest to reach the 2,000 winner mark and the 3,000 winner mark. And he's trained more winners in Britain than anyone currently training in Britain.
Back then, I didn't have the money to buy horses, so I had to rely on getting them from owners, and I didn't have many owners, so I borrowed the horses. There was plenty. It's probably the same in the countries that you're in. There's lots of owners who send you a horse if you don't charge them any training fees. So, of the 12 horses I had in the first year, I was only getting paid for 3.5. Different from today. People think when you hear of 3,600 winners or 206 winners in a year, people think, oh, life must be very easy and you must be on a continual high. It's not like that at all. In that if I go 7 days at the moment without a winner, I start getting emails and anonymous phone calls and things from people calling me a cheat and saying that I can't do my job and so on. I bought the premises in November 1986. I got the license in February 1987, and the first winner came on the 1st of July that year. And he was the only winner in 1987, but that was enough to keep us on a high for the rest of the year. One winner was plenty. And the main thing I remember from the day was that there was no television coverage of racing in those days. The winner was in Carlisle, a small track, so it wasn't on terrestrial television, and obviously there were no satellite channels. And there was a thing on television called teletext, where the results of the racing would come up. So I got home from Carlisle about 4 o'clock, and Deirdre came in from school. She was working as a teacher, and we put the teletext page on television, and we watched it for the rest of the night, just the one page telling of the results. But getting Sheikh Mohammed was a major landmark. It changed the business in many ways. Particularly, it changed the way in which our customers paid us. I think up until 1993 or more 1994, I was always in debt, and I was always chasing money to get money in from owners, just enough to pay the wages. That was always the target, and it was difficult to get the money in. And one particular problem was that the best horses were owned by the worst payers, and I was frightened to push those people for the money in fear that I might lose the horses. Sheikh Mohammed transformed all that when he sent just 4 horses in 1994 and made me treat owners differently. I realised that to get good horses you didn't have to attract the people that won't pay. Many owners have different criteria. Many owners want different things out of racing. Some people just want to win a race. Some people want to win a race at their local track when their auntie and uncle are there to watch it run. There is one very large owner in Britain at the moment whose ambition is to win every race at Chester, and so no matter where it would be best for his horses to run, he wants them all to run at Chester. I'm a great believer that as trainers we are paid to provide a service to the owner, and we are paid to try and fulfill their aims. It is a very difficult question, and I'm a great believer that it's not about luck. Obviously, there is a phrase at home, you make your own luck. However, when I started age 27, although I was risking everything I had, I didn't have a lot to lose. I had no children, I had no property. I was working as a veterinary surgeon and Deirdre was working as a teacher. We realised that the worst that would happen to us is that if we failed, I would have to go back to working as a vet, and Deirdre would have to go back to working as a teacher, and we would have a debt to pay off. And we were confident that we could do that. So the first piece of advice perhaps would be not to wait too long to take the plunge. Although you have to gamble everything, you have to put 100% into it. As I said earlier, I attracted a lot of owners who didn't pay. And I now look around me and I see other young trainers starting out, and even those 2 owners that were a huge problem to me, they still own horses and they still have them with the type of trainer that I was then. So I think it is very, very difficult for young trainers starting without financial backing to get them through those peaks and troughs. I don't know the answer. Perhaps if I look back to try and bring myself into the modern day situation, I think I would probably look to keep the overheads low by training on track. First of all, in purchasing horses, Paul is, I presume, specifically referring to purchasing yearlings, unraced horses. I don't think in 25 years of training I have ever purchased what I call a second-hand horse, a horse in training. All my purchases have been yearlings or 2-year-old breeze-up horses. At my own level, I am a scientist. I think like a scientist, not like an artist. And science, first and foremost, is based on logic and facts. And as far as I'm concerned, the fact is that pedigree is more important than conformation. So the success of pedigree is proven and without doubt. The success of buying based on conformation, to my mind, is completely unproven. And in principle, we have got 50% of our genes from our father and 50% of our genes from our mother. They in turn got 50% from each parent. So the people with their dosage theories and other pedigree experts who are looking at third and fourth generation, I think those people would have Mendel and Darwin turning in their grave. The most important animals in a pedigree are the sire and the dam, and they are far more important than the grandsires and granddams, and they are subsequently far more important than the great-grandsires and great-granddams. I accept that mares may have missed out on the racetrack because of injury, because of trainer, because of various other things. But the most common reason for failing to win a race or failing to win a group race is because you're too slow. And if you're too slow, the chances are you didn't inherit those good genes from your mother or your father if they were fast. So I don't buy the progeny, I won't buy the first foal of a non-winning mare. My personal rule is the dam must be rated above 90 or must have produced animals rated above 90. I would guess that it's the same the world over, but in Britain it is very much frowned upon to actively try and sell yourself to other trainers' owners. People think the relationship is very personal. John Gosden, I don't know about John Gosden, I'm just using him as an example, but perhaps John Gosden would get upset if I was to approach Anthony Oppenheimer and try and get him to send his horses to me. So I made a brochure which told the story of how I wanted it to be, not how it was at the moment. And I would say the results from the brochure immediately were nil. But having put my name out to those people, I put my name in their mind. If I had no success, I wasn't going to turn it into horses. But the combination of advertising and success snowballed and produced more and more horses. He sees these things and he says, standards aren't what they used to be. And that's why my horse is running badly. This yard is slipping. So I think it's vital that it keeps your customers if you always show that your standards are at least as good as they were last year and the year before, and you're always looking to make things fresh and new and look like you're a professional outfit. For an owner who had a large house building firm in Britain, and he then sold his company and he was retired, richer than ever and retired. And I used to go up on the gallops to watch the horses for the last lot of the day at say 11:30 in the morning, and I'd come back into the office at 12:05. In Britain, entries close at 12 o'clock. And I would ask the girls in the office, is everything okay? They'd say, yes, but Mr. So-and-so, he phoned and he cancelled this entry and this entry and this entry, and he made this entry and this entry and this entry. And I told him to leave and train the horses himself. And there's been a few examples of that. An employee once said to me, "You know whether it's feeling well in the morning." Well, frankly, no, I don't. We all know that. We don't know whether the horse is feeling well in the morning. And sometimes even the fact that it coughed, or that it was slightly lame, or that it had a temperature, all these things, they don't tell us for sure that it's not going to win. In fact, they're extremely unreliable as a guide to how it's going to perform. The only thing that tells us it's not going to win is if the jockey's going to stop it from winning. Inevitably, the number of runs for a 2-year-old is a lot less than the number of runs for an older horse. For a start, most 2-year-olds are not ready to run on the first day of the season. The reason they're not ready to run on the first day of the season is partly through maturity, but mostly down to the fact that most 2-year-olds are not 5-furlong sprinters, and we only allow them to run 5 furlongs on the first day of the season. You run over 5 furlongs in March, there's a danger that it can't keep up. So, of course, you wait with that horse for a more appropriate distance to run it over. That said, I think there's even misconceptions about that. I will gallop every horse that is fit to do so, every horse that is sound, will gallop in March of its 2-year-old year. Fast gallop. That's regardless of whether I expect it to run in April or in October. I think interval training is a phrase that's materialised in the human athletics world around the late 1970s, 1980s, and referring to long, slow build-up, intervals between training and so on. And really, when you look at the traditional methods of training a horse, I would like to think that horsemen were practicing interval training centuries before human athletes ever thought of it. So I think our methods are generally fairly traditional, but most of that could be considered to be interval training. The traditional methods of training horses, they canter or breeze up the gallop, they come round, walk back to the beginning and do it again. I suppose on the round track gallops, it's maybe not the same, but even so, traditional methods would have a fast piece of work, a cool down, another fast piece of work, a cool down, and then go home. So I think that is interval training. There is suggestions which interest me a lot that if we did more very fast work over short intervals, we may produce harder bone and reduce some injuries. It's a tempting thing to try, but usually we shy away from doing work at maximum rates. I think both. I think everybody has to work together if you want to raise the standards of racing in your country. We have it at home now where on an international scale the racing authorities and the BHA are working to attract more ownership to Britain, more investment of money from outside into British racing. But then within the country it's down to the trainers to attract owners for themselves and to be competitive and to promote their own businesses. I fully understand that it's very difficult for small racing nations to compete and to grow. but perhaps not countries like Britain that you should be looking to, or countries like Japan and Australia, where they have grown from small beginnings to really big things.
I'd like to thank Mark, of course, for turning up and spending time giving us such a tremendous insight into the way he trains, the way he thinks.
Dnešný seminár s popredným anglickým trénerom Markom Johnstonom naplní svoje poslanie. Pekne chcem poďakovať Markovi Johnstonovi a Paulovi Kahnovi a naozaj ich prítomnosť nás všetkých v Bratislave a nielen v Bratislave a v celej strednej Európe veľmi osviežila. Mi dovolte, aby som pánovi Johnstonovi predal takú alebo dozdal špeciálnu cenu alebo suvenír, taký krásny kryštálový pohár, kde je všetkých 22 grupových víťazov alebo víťazov dostí grupy 1, tak aby mu tento pekný pohár pripomínal jeho účinkovanie alebo jeho pobyt na Slovensku, Bratislava a vôbec v celej strednej Európe. Tak ešte raz ďakujem.
It's very difficult for me to send a message to Central European countries about racing when, frankly, I don't know enough about it. I have to admit, this is my first visit to Slovakia. I've met a few trainers, but I haven't seen much beyond the hotel, and I haven't seen any racing at all. But I think it's no different from British racing or racing anywhere else. I've been talking to trainers today about their own businesses and where they're going, and I think you have to be aspirational, you have to aim for the top. Dream of classic winners, dream of international classic winners, dream of going to Royal Ascot, make that your aim, and one day you'll achieve it.